in Silicon Valley practices. So it's a terrific group of very talented and bright faculty members. And one of the things I hear every year, I give our exiting students, our graduating students, a survey, a big one, and get a good response from it. And I ask them everything. How do you find the facilities? How do you find the accessibility of the faculty members, their curriculum, et cetera, et cetera. And our faculty continue to receive very, very high marks from our graduating students on their accessibility, for their knowledge of the law, and for their willingness to work with students. We have a few problem children in there, but we continue to hope, as is the Jesuit way in redemption, that they'll find a way to engage more substantially in student learning, which is really what we want. In 1911, you can imagine that there was the emphasis really that they put on this was practice, that this was an opportunity to learn practice skills. And today, of course, the concept of what it means to practice law is quite a bit different. So to learn to prepare to practice law requires knowledge of complicated corporate business transactions. It requires knowledge of very complicated administrative agency regulations and processes. It requires an understanding of how business is done in Singapore or Shanghai, and what that means to American businesses. It means the ability to engage thoughtfully in client counseling and mediation and arbitration, which is a growing area, as you all know, probably as well or better than I do, growing area of what lawyers are, the skills that lawyers need to know. It means being able to leave law school today, because our graduates don't have the mentoring and support systems that many of our graduates from 20 or 30 years ago had. Even in small practices. Today it's not true. If you go to work for a large firm, you're expected to bill 2,000 or 2,200 hours a year. And the complications in smaller, medium-sized firms are as great or even more in terms of that training. So more is being expected of law schools to develop the knowledge about how to voir dire a potential jury panel, how to prepare interrogatories, how to prepare a somewhat simple perhaps but effective discovery program for some civil litigation or what have you. So it's caused us to really attenuate our faculty. As I mentioned, a third of our faculty are really very much in the practice skills area. And increasingly, firms and corporations are saying that we need graduates who can do even more. We need them skilled in project management, in teamwork, in leadership, and in some of these other competencies that we're trying to learn more about to help our students prepare for that. My leadership education course, for example, sells out. And I said, oh, you just want to spend time with the dean. That's not the case, they say, but what they're saying is that I'm clerking for Intel. Leadership is extremely important to the law department at Intel or at firms that support corporations in the area. So, well, we're getting a lot of information from our students on some of these other competencies. So it's going to challenge us even more. But at the same time, we have highly recognized programs in IP and in international and comparative law, and certainly in public interest and social justice. A lot of these things were being developed or were fully bloomed when you were in law school, and they're a big part of who we are and how we prepare our students. We're using, as we look forward to this notion about Silicon Valley, that we're the law school in Silicon Valley. And so if you're in Denver and you're wondering, well, what good does that do me? Because I'm not there, or I didn't want to stay there. But our thinking about this is that what happens in Silicon Valley is really representative of what happens in the practice of, so for example, IP. We have the most sophisticated, comprehensive IP curriculum in the United States. There's no law school in the United States that has as much IP opportunities in the program. If you learn IP law working in Silicon Valley, kind of ground zero for this movement, you can practice in Denver in this really vibrant corridor of IP-related work, technology-related work here in Austin, outside of Dulles Airport, in that corridor, in that area. Chicago's got a fast-growing IP influence. So that education that you get there at Santa Clara in this area is going to prepare you for that practice in those areas. The same is true with respect to a lot of our international work. Lawyers throughout the United States have global or international influences, whether it's enforcement of judgments or issues with respect to criminal law in an international setting. So we really think that this is a terrific preparatory ground and a location to train men and women to go anywhere that they want to go and to be effective and good lawyers throughout the world, literally. In recent years, I've been doing some alumni events in Seoul, Korea, because of the tremendous number. The Vice President and General Counsel for Samsung, for example, is a Santa Clara JD graduates, a former Dean of Seoul National University's Law School, Kenny Han, Santa Clara JD grads. We have quite a few that are LLM graduates who return